So let me introduce Matt. Matt is the board chair for Growth Action Network. I guess you're in your second year in that role, Matt. Would that be right?
I forget
Third?
second or third.
Can't remember when he wasn't the chair. So, in Growth Action Network, CEPA is an organizational member. We currently have a lot of interaction on policy matters and communication. A lot of the CEPA communication is done through GAN, and Paul wears multiple communications hats. So he does, newsletters, webinars, you name it, all that kind of thing. So there's a lot of existing interaction. Matt's really been a very effective leader of GAN. We got a few of those hotheads out of the chairs, and Matt's got an excellent career in long career with the World Bank, and locally has stepped into the leadership roles with a number of organizations. I won't try to list them all. Generally, anything that is an SAC, Matt's probably on or the chair of the Spending Affordability Committee, a couple of Citizens Advisory Committee. I guess those are Stakeholder Advisory Committee. Um, and Are you the chair of neighborhoods of the neighbors of the Mayo Peninsula?
No, I stepped down when I joined GAN, but I'm
Okay.
still a member of Neighbors, and as is Lloyd. In
Ah,
fact, this is my second hour of the day with Lloyd.
oh,
Shit,
my sympathies. Okay.
I know.
Um,
Isn't that terrible?
yeah, it is. I spoke to Lloyd earlier as well. So one of the things that GAN has been looking at and frustrated for a long time is that the land use policy making decision process in Anne Arundel County seems inadequate for a modern urban county with a lot of growth pressures, a lot of concern amongst citizens about adequate public facilities. Some of us have been taken to calling them the inadequate public facilities ordinances. Um, they, uh, they're problematic, and we've are gearing up to advocate a restructuring of the public, particularly on the land use side, both from an environmental point of view, from a fiscal point of view, and to kind of professionalize that. And we have a planning advisory board, which some of you may have served on over the years, which has a partial engagement on this, but it's got some real flaws. It's got a limited scope. It has no real in-depth support, professional support inside, and its advice on things is not applied uniformly, I would say. So we're gearing up to do that, and GAN is going to lead an effort. We going to right now. I think that we're in this stage of trying to kind of background influential groups on the purpose of this, the need for it, and hopefully some of the improvements that would arise when we are successful. So Matt's been the delivering the message on this, and Matt, why don't you just kick off and just talk to us, and then this ought to be real interactive. So if anybody has a question,
Oh yeah,
um,
anytime.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
just kind of raise your hand or make some other evidence of your desire to speak. So, and I
Great.
see Jeff Short is on as well. Matt, do you know these folks that you're seeing on the screen?
Just about all of them. I spoke to SEPA some years ago when we were working on the Peninsula policy development areas down at CERC,
Mm-hmm.
and many of you were there. And I've talked to Sally on different matters, Lloyd and Paul, of course,
Mm-hmm.
a lot.
Yeah.
Al and I have been in conversation. Jeff
Okay.
and I, we were on the screen for something or another. Virginia, I think you were on one of our GAN calls. So
All
yeah.
right. Matt's role on the board of CEPA is now moved and seconded ex officio. All right. The floor is yours, man.
Thanks so much. Well, first of all, let me just thank Mike for the invitation. I think there's a huge need for everything SEPA is doing. Having technically competent and informed and educated people who know something about the environment is a rarity. And having so many of you who know so much about the environment in the Chesapeake Bay makes SEPA an invaluable asset to our work in GAN and I think to the whole county. So let me just, from the cheap seats out here, cheer you on. Thank you very much and tell you, please don't stop. There's a lot more to do here. I would say our kind of driving overarching vision in GAN is about preserving and enhancing the Chesapeake Bay. Uh, we, Everything we do has some touch point on improving the rivers and the bay, having to do with forest conservation, forest preservation, uh, how and where development is done, stormwater management. All of those are right up our alley. And the work that we do is all intended to preserve and improve the waters of the rivers and the bay. Uh, Sometimes it's hard to see the connection between our testimony on a Monday night at the county council meeting in improving the waters of the Chesapeake Bay, but in the back of our minds, that is the central goal here, and I think we share that with you, which I'm very pleased about. Um, as Mike mentioned, there are, I would say, huge deficits in the way the county manages its land use projects. Um, the code for development was written some 30, 40 years ago. Um, we had broad acknowledgement from the county executive when he was first elected that he would have the code rewritten. He didn't. We pressed him again. He didn't. After he was elected, I sat in his office and I said, God, I said, this is the minute to do this, Stuart. You've just been elected. You've got a mandate. Go rewrite the code. And they diddled and dawdled, and finally the guy they hired had a death in the family, and something happened, and so they're not rewriting the code. They're doing it piece by piece by virtue of these land use bills that have come forward in the last 18 months. So there's a big land use bill that just got passed in October called the Housing Attainability Act. And it's intended to create moderately priced dwelling units in large developments. So if you've got a development of 10 homes, you have to have one moderately priced unit. If you have a development of 20, you have to have two. So it's roughly a 10% yield. Um, and the county gives the developer some financial incentives by reducing the connection fees and waiving some bureaucratic requirements to do that. We're thrilled to see the idea, but our GAN perspective is you're giving away a heck of a lot for too little yield, given how huge the affordability and workforce housing shortage is. These ought to be 30, 40, 50% moderately priced units, not 10%. Stewart pushes back, the county council pushes back. Well, the developers won't do it for more than 10%, but we continue to advocate. Um, yeah, go ahead, Sally.
You're muted, Sally.
Yeah, I was going to say also, you didn't mention the environmental incentives also that have gone with that bill, which
That's
allow
right.
a lot more impervious surface. And not just on the uh, not just on the attainable, whatever you would call that, but the entire subdivision has now
Correct.
environmental uh, less environmental protection. So it's a big
Right.
problem.
The only enhancement is stormwater. If you're going to build, you've got to conform to the current stormwater management requirements that are in the manual. But that bill reduces it. Without getting too technical here, if you have a piece of property with steep slopes and let's say a stream valley and buildable land, the density of that property was computed just by the net density. It excluded the forest, it excluded the stream valleys, it excluded any protected land. And so if you had 5 acres, two of which was open space and protected with steep slopes and forest, and three of which were available for development, the computation for your density was based on the 3 acres. This bill changed the computation from net density to gross density. So now when you're computing how much density you can have there, you can now compute the whole 5 acres. Now you're not going to build on the last 2 acres. They're still protected, but you get to compute the number of housing units, dwelling units, based upon the whole 5 acres. It increases the density, it reduces the open space, it reduces the recreation area, and as you've said, Sally, it increases the impervious surface. So a bunch of your advocates, including two of us from GAN and Scenic Rivers Land Trust and Arundel Rivers, have been in conversation with Stewart and with Pete Smith about reversing some of that. And so we've got a meeting with Stewart's staff and Allison Pickard, who was the sponsor of the amendment, Julie Hummer and Pete Smith on Thursday. And this will be our second meeting. We're going to make the case that the open space computation is too low. Here's the other thing. You can put your stormwater facilities in the open space. So you don't have to create any additional space for your stormwater facilities. So your recreation area, your stormwater facilities, and open space all compete for the same areas. And if you really want to despair about that, call our guy Steve Miller, who's our stormwater guy. He just walked Kate Fox and me through his development last night, showing us, and this is a responsibly built development that is very well managed by a strong HOA. And he pointed out just 15 problems where there's stormwater where there shouldn't be, lot lines that aren't clear, encroaching on open space areas. So the advocates are meeting again for the second time on Thursday. Matt Johnston's going to make the case that even if you won't revert from gross density to net density, at least scale down the equation, because when he computes this out, I mean, the numbers just become enormous. So Scenic Rivers is going to argue that if you allow all of this to happen, it's going to increase the cost of land conservation, and the county has made a commitment to conserve land by 2030, conserve forest land. And we're going to make the case that you're cramming more people into less space, and that the more people you have, actually, the more open space you need, and not the less. So that's going to be our GAN position when we have this meeting on Thursday. Yeah, Lloyd.
Lloyd, you're muted.
Is the stated intent of this activity to get the bill amended?
Yes.
Pulled and resubmitted, or what are you trying to get done?
We're trying to get amendments made to the bill.
And that can be done after it's been passed.
It would just be a new bill.
Yeah, so it's a new bill, really, then. Yeah. You're trying to replace
I was wrong. It's not amendments. The bill's passed. It doesn't take effect until July 1st. And there's good news, bad news there. The bad news is that this gives the developers 8 months to submit things before July 1st that get grandfathered. But the good news is that it goes into effect at the same time that the redevelopment bill goes into effect. And so they'll both be working in tandem. Now, let me just pause here. Is this too much land use jargon? Is this too much? Just help me calibrate here with what's useful to you. Yeah, Mike.
Matt, yeah, I would suggest. I mean, this is a smoking gun case that our review system is grossly inadequate, and that had these changes been run through a strong review board, a planning commission, like most charter counties have, these issues would have been surfaced. They would have been evaluated both for their environmental. There's a whole set of fiscal consequences here that are going to be pawned off on the general public. And once the bill's introduced and you get a sponsor who's passionate and the clock starts ticking on its adoption, I mean, I sat in a room one night when Allison Pickard said, "We're not going to have any more amendments on this bill. We're going to vote on it tonight." And I don't think it was this one. Maybe it was, but it was.
It was the housing attainability.
Okay, it was. Yeah. So she was chair at the time and just basically cut off debate, called in all her chips, and I think it passed. I don't know, 4-3, or maybe it was unanimous. But we've got to repair the system, or we're going to always be playing fourth quarter or last minute defense um, against bad development, or at least development where nobody really knows what the consequences are. And there are any number of these. I mean, I first encountered this stuff on a task force on the status of our school system, and we documented a $500 million in unfunded maintenance and renovation costs on the schools. And nobody was even looking at that stuff. And we make up our financial deficits by neglecting maintenance of our public assets. So Matt, I think that maybe if there are more examples of the consequences of this system, that's probably worth talking about. But I think the victory comes by changing the system here, right. Not always playing late game defense with not enough Heisman Trophy winners.
Let me get to that in just a moment.
Yeah.
There's a bill that's active right now, Bill 225, which is a bill that provides incentives for redevelopment. So the intention here is to identify underutilized commercial space and repurpose it for either a higher order commercial use or residential. And the bill allows a little bit greater density. Instead of R15, you can go to R22, and it changes the review process. If your site is already constructed, you've already got impervious surface, you don't have to do a grading permit, you don't have to do a sketch plan. You just have a community meeting, you present your ideas, you revise your plan, you have another community meeting, and then OPZ goes through a checklist with you. The council member from District 7, who I think represents many of you on the call here, got basically all of Edgewater and Crofton and South exempted from this bill because a campaign was mounted that I thought was basically misinformed and racist, that just argued we don't want those people around us. And she fell for it and got this amendment passed that exempts all of Region 8 and Region 9 in the planning SACs from her bill. She also got the east side of Route 3, east and south side of Route 3 for 2 miles exempted, even though the west side and the rest of Route 3 is not exempted. It was the most parochial, self-serving piece of legislation I've seen in a long time. And what's mostly bothersome to me is that Pete Smith went along with it. But to Mike's larger point, yeah, go ahead.
Is that redevelopment more dense residential and higher order commercial, or is that the idea on the residential part? Is that allowing a denser residential zoning?
Slightly. I mean, from R15 to R22, we're not talking about a huge.
Yeah, okay.
And as someone said to me the other day, it's basically adding another story to a mid-rise apartment building. That's all we're talking about here.
Okay. And the commercial is just upzoning 1 or 2 notches or something?
And it's actually not even upzoning. It's once you've got the zoning for whatever it was, you don't get to rezone. Residential is allowed in C1, 2, 3, and I think maybe, and this now adds C4. So right now, if you have C1 through 3, and with the Tuesday night's amendment, you can have residential in C4 now. So you don't even have to change the zoning.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the idea is to take underutilized strip malls and unutilized gas stations, and once the Marley Station Mall gets out of its own financial way, allow some mixed use to be done there. But that's the intention. I'm sorry. Go
Mhm.
ahead, Sally.
Well, also Severna Park, that area right through the center of
Mm.
Severna Park has
Right.
also been exempted now through Amanda Fiedler. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
I found I wasn't as bothered by her amendment as I was by Shannon's, which
yeah,
was which I thought was completely she had been persuaded by a large volume of specious arguments full of misinformation provided by people who have a history of keeping people out.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and she didn't take the county as a whole into account.
right.
Uh, Here's one other PS. If you watch last Tuesday's meeting on Arundel TV, she submitted an amendment that would have excluded all of Route 3 from redevelopment, all of it, despite the fact that it's in four different council districts. And Fortunately, there are not many days when I fully agree with Alison
Mm.
Picard, but this day I did. She said, she said, I don't need a passport to drive down Route 3, but I know I'm going through three or four different council districts here, and you don't have the right to legislate for all of our districts. So she whipped up another one that just included her district, which, as I said, is just
Mm.
the east and south side of Route
Mm.
3. It doesn't include the west side, which is
Mm.
just Looney Tunes. So, and I told her I was unhappy with that. I'm going to see her
Mm.
Thursday night at a Mayo meeting and an Edgewater meeting, and I'm going to tell her again. And I complained to Pete Smith about his vote too. Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, Matt, in a sort of unexpected way, at least to me, had we had a professionally staffed
Yeah, planning
planning
board.
advice, that group could have absorbed that criticism and dealt with it, and
Correct.
either gone along, or if they said it was unfounded, they would have given a political a council member some cover. They said, "Well, I
Yes.
understand your concerns, but we've wrestled this thing to the ground. We've looked at it thoroughly. Our planning advisory, they've looked at all these issues you're raising, and we're confident that they're manageable. It's going to be good for you." And shown some courage and not just bent. And so I think that's another benefit, is to give some courage
Right.
to the political figures.
So here's an interesting and troubling statistic. 22 of the 24 jurisdictions in the state of Maryland have a full-blown planning commission, most of whom have the charter to review land use legislation and make recommendations to the council. They hold open public meetings.
Of course.
Public's invited to testify. There are some time limits in some places, but anybody can say anything, and you're not bound by this 95-day ticking clock that a bill before the council is driven by. Our county does not have that. Our county has a planning advisory board, and they actually spend most of their time looking at the budget. Now, I will say they went through, I was on the Region 9 um, Stakeholder Advisory Committee. We looked at the coastal area, Route 2 and east and the coastal area of the county. And Planning Advisory Board went through every single land use change um, and had a big impact. Um, the county was whining about having so many parcels that were split zoned, parcels that were open space and residential, or open space and something else. And they lean hard on us as an SAC to undo the split zoning and just make them all residential, or make them all whatever the core underlying zoning is. And their argument was, well, the critical area laws and the forest con laws are stronger protections than the open space protections. Planning Advisory Board pushed back on that, and they said that's ridiculous. Reinstate all the open space that you've taken away from 400 properties in the work that you in Region 9 did. So they have some teeth, and OPZ obliged. Um, but there are kind of two major problems with the Planning Advisory Board. One is they're appointed by the current county executive. And as much as generally Stewart is doing the right things in the right places, when we have another county executive here in another 18 months, and if it's County Executive Jessica Hare, she replaces them all and puts her own people on there. And while that's a bit fearful to me, um, the systemic problem is that these appointments are coterminous with the county executive. And so our first um, effort here is to stagger the PAB terms so that we don't have a 180-degree turn with the change of county executive. We don't have a big major reversal in development philosophy with a change in administration. And I've spoken with 5 of the county councilors. They have agreed to support that. However, requires a change of the county charter, and which goes to the voters. If 5 county council members agree to put it on the charter ballot, then it'll be on the 2026 election ballot. And I think we can get that done. And that's a step in the right direction. But it's not enough. These 22 other jurisdictions mandate the Planning Commission to review all major land use legislation. Our GAN attorney guy, Russ Stevenson, who many of you know and love, believes that our current code, our current charter allows that to happen. But Stewart and the county attorney are not reading it that way. So we think we've got to take that to a charter amendment as well to establish the fact that the Planning Advisory Board, Planning Commission, reviews all major land use legislation, open hearings, open testimony, as many people as want to talk for as long as they want to talk, for as long as they need to review the thing, and then make a recommendation to the council. I can't get county councilors to agree to that. So we're likely going to have to take that to a petition. And we're in conversation with the League of Women Voters and the three people. Um, I'm forgetting their name, but so we're in conversation with a couple of groups. This is a project Mike has agreed to take on, and is kind of leading us through. And so that's going to be a big lift. If we have to get 10,000 verified signatures, and you'll recall the last time we had a petition in this county, the League of Women Voters uh, had the petition disqualified because 14 of the 14,000 signatures they got, more than 4,000 of them were invalid or not registered or not county residents. So we think we have a ruling that we can do this electronically. And if we can do it electronically and we don't have to compete with the Girl Scouts outside the Giant for signatures for a year or two, we think we can do this. But for now, that's a big heavy lift. And let me just say one other thing, Lloyd. One other thing that's on our county charter mind right now is the fact that somehow the voters were hoodwinked into approving 3 terms for the county council in the 2022 election. A badly worded amendment to the county charter approved a 3rd term for county councilors. And that is a bad idea on every single level. Now, so we're hoping, you know, if we have to do one petition, we may as well do 2. So those are areas where I'd love to talk with you guys about and see what you guys think. Are we kind of smoking dope here, or is there something that you think we're on the right track with and that maybe CEPA might support? Yeah, Lloyd.
Well, just for clarification, you mentioned getting more teeth to the PAB and you mentioned a planning commission. Which of the 2 would this petition or this charter amendment be, for my understanding?
It
You
would,
going for
well,
a planning commission or are you going for a stronger PAB? Or are they
uh,
one and the same?
yeah, they're really the same, just different jurisdictions call them different things. It's the underlying authority that really makes the difference here. And as I said, our guy Russ Stevenson thinks that we've got the authority right now. I can't get Stewart to take action on that. And the county attorney is in a piston match. And so uh, and I don't know whether we try to take this to court and try to get a judge to rule on this, or whether we take this to petition. But if we have to do but if we do one petition, we may as well do a second and try to roll back this third term for county councilors.
You might want to call it a planning commission so we know it's different than the PAB.
Yep, it's totally with you on that, Lloyd.
How would you convince the voters that a third term is not a good thing?
Uh, Here's my argument. My argument is when you cement all of this power in the same seven people for 12 years, given the way the county council operates, you basically have sealed off the citizens from access to their county government. And that healthy turnover is really important. It doesn't take 8 years. I had this debate with people arguing for term limits in the U.S. Congress. And my argument has been until I'm rethinking it now. But until now, I look at a Teddy Kennedy, or a guy from Utah. They knew a bunch of stuff about the technical areas in which they were on committees that you can't learn in 2 years and turn over. And you can't hold government to account if you turn these jobs over every 2, 4, or 6 years. But in county government, it's not that hard. It's not that difficult. You get up the learning curve in about 10 minutes. And so you don't need 12 years on the job to be effective in the role of county councilor. So my argument is that it seals off, first of all, it prevents other people from having access because we know the power of the incumbency is the supreme power. Uh, uh, you certainly can't challenge any of these people in a primary because they have all the money locked up. Um, and running against them has proven to be a fool's errand.
Seems like the
So,
council objection to this planning commission idea is they're afraid they are going to lose authority and power. But
yes.
the commission would still be making recommendations for action by the council. So where's the hang up there?
Well, two hangups. One is it invites more public citizen voices and input into the process than the council accommodates in its 95-day schedule, which necessarily limits the amount of citizen input. And the other is it holds them accountable. The Planning Commission would say, on this bill, we recommend the following things. And that's a public document. And the council would have to either agree with them or explain why not.
So, Matt, what can CEPA do to move the ball down the field here? If we are so inclined.
Yeah. So first of all, don't ask Mike to chair any more meetings because we need all of his time for GAN. Mike is taking on the biggest ticket, longest term project we have here. I know.
I didn't read the fine print, I guess.
um,
Lots of
so
help.
yeah, we have a lot of research that one of our members has done on this, and I'm hoping to get her and Mike hooked up in the next couple of days here, so she can do a data dump and turn this over to Mike. Um, But what CEPA can do is kind of pay attention on these matters, and when it comes to petitions or even if we do this to the council, I'm sure Paul will be doing newsletters on it, and right to your council member. Anything you write to Shannon or to any council member goes to all of them, so they all see it. And so be big and be loud on these matters.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Here's Al. Al.
I want to change the topic slightly. I'm sitting on the Agricultural Commission, and one of its charters is land use,
Yeah.
particularly preserving agricultural use. My opinion is that the Agricultural Commission is failing miserably on this subject. I did a presentation at the last meeting. I was able to get some satellite data that actually showed 15 different categories of land use in the county. And the land use has really got, I would say, fine degrees of differences. Growth was categorized into high, medium, and low. Agriculture was into croplands and pasture lands. And surprisingly, the other major categories were basically all open space, all the way down to many categories of forests, down to wetlands, and et cetera. So what I had done was to group development categories together, extract out the agriculture, and looked at the rest of the lands, which were basically undevelopable. And the good thing was that I was able to look at the differences between 1985 and 2023. And if you looked at the net change, all right, it was the agricultural lands that moved into development. And so that's the pressure, I think, in the county, is to go where the land is. And it's obviously not going to give up. But there's just I have no other assets on the commission to get any traction with these ideas that this really needs to be taken into consideration. There was some good news in the data, and that if you saw that basically Region 8 is pretty close to 95% of all the agricultural land in the county. It's there. If you were to look at the east side of the west side of the Patuxent River, I mean, PG County has gone from green to red.
Oh, yeah.
From 1985 to 2023. I mean, it's just almost shocking, all right, to see it.
Al, I drove through Upper Marlboro a couple days ago, and there had to be 5 miles of road in which there was housing under construction, due to be under construction or just constructed, and that was just one contiguous stretch of road. It was shocking to me what they've done in PG County.
Yeah, and so my point is should we try to get GAN involved and interacting with the Agricultural Commission? I mean, there's no traction other than me, and basically I'm getting worn down.
How much erosion was there of the agricultural land in the window that you're talking about? What percentage or how many acres? Do you have any on that?
4%. Well, we're talking about the entire county. I don't have the numbers right here in front of me, but it basically went from like 13% agricultural down to 9%. So that's a huge number in relative percentage. I mean, basically, since 1985, all the agriculture above 214 is gone, with the exception of the Navy Dairy Farm.
Yeah.
And a couple of the turf farms over on the Broadneck. But even they have shrunk. So, that's the size of it. The other indication was that if you looked at the composition of the agriculture land, it shifted. There was a shift from croplands to pasture lands, which kind of indicates that maybe we've got a horse community that's kind of taking over. My conversations with some of the farmers who basically are still in business is that the 20 acres has created this farmette mentality.
Yeah.
And as a result, people who have moved into these farmettes and whose land was originally being, cropped by rental, have given up, and because they don't like pesticides or whatever, the whole 9 yards. The other big aspect is the percentage of forest lands on farms. I haven't really done a breakdown of that, but my guess is that perhaps now this is just a wild ass guess, about 50% of our agricultural zone land is forests. And it is highly fragmented. Different management structures, the whole 9 yards, and that go down that route. And again, with these farmettes, they tend to have all kinds of different management structures for forests, et cetera. So, I don't think the Agriculture Commission is really, adding value as much as Stewart thinks it is. I mean, he's preserving the local farm stands, basically, is what it is. And the few really, good people who are trying to still make a living, raising cattle, et cetera. But, it's the other point I wanted to make, if you looked at the census, the percent of agriculture of county GDP is about 0.04%. And of that 0.04%, 50% is in horticulture. Aquaculture pops up as the next big number. And I don't believe that it's who you think it is. There's one big player in aquaculture, and that's the Deal Aquaculture Fish Farm. And he's gotten bigger and better than ever before. And what I discerned from previous censuses, at that time, he was doing about $4 million in gross sales per year. Given the size of his operations, he's doing a hell of a lot more than that right now. So when you really get down to who's holding the most land in terms of open space is the croplands, and they're down into the $3 million per year contribution, all right, to agriculture.
To the economy, yes.
And with the demise of the grain elevator, it's not clear how many of the mid-sized farms we have are going to survive.
Didn't Stewart just build one?
Now, build what?
He bought one.
He bought one.
Don't work.
It doesn't work. It turns out this year it was inoperable.
Oh,
Hey,
wow.
I told Matt that we wouldn't tie him up much longer. Actually, he's been more generous than I asked him to be. I'm not sure that Matt can certainly speak on this, but I think GAN is probably not going to do a single industry issue. I mean, as you know, you and I have talked about this a million times, and I would think that within the context of these region reports, that's where the ought to be bold, underlined. This is a problem area. If you go back and read the earlier plans, the small area plans, yeah, I thought it did that. But as you know, as we all know, saying something once, that's not how the beer companies sell beer. You got to you got to make a lot of noise over a long period of time, and you got to make it a political issue.
So let me just say, Mike, having been on the Region 9 committee,
Yeah.
We were very intentional about not expanding residential or commercial areas south of 214. We made one recommendation for Churchton that there could be potentially some more housing because there's water and sewer there. But the so at least in our SAC, and it's going to happen in Region 8 as well. I think they're going to hold the line and not allow, gross rezonings and land use changes to agricultural land. But let me also say that we get a lot of shit from the people in the north of the county who say, you're cramming all this development up here in the north of the county, and you guys down there have no traffic problems, and you guys down there have no congestion problems, and you guys down there have empty schools, and all of which are true. But there is a huge, and a couple of county council members are stoking that. But there is a lot of north versus south pressure to put more development down south. And it is the agricultural preservation zones that I think are protecting what you've got.
Okay, and if anybody, we will continue to follow up on this. I think once we get a concept paper, I can kind of highlight that for the CEPA board, and we can try to identify some specifics where CEPA can, if the trustees want to do this, to engage in some advocacy to beef up, to strengthen the land use policy, because I think it's failing in multitude of ways.
So these two charter amendments on the PAB and potentially a third on council term limits are the best way to do that. And I think in the next month or 6 weeks, we're going to advance our thinking far enough to put something in writing that we can share with you. We'd certainly love your input on it. Our hope is to get this to the council before they get to budget season, and that's coming up May 1st. So, but as I said, I've got 5 yeses on staggered term limits for the PAB, and so I think we've got that one sold. The rechartering from a PAB to a planning commission is where the heavy lift is going to be, and we'd love to have all of your support on that. And we'll, by all means, you'll hear from Paul, I'm sure, on how to support that.
We'll give you a clipboard and send it to the grocery store. Get some signatures. Matt, thank you.
Matt.
Thank you.
You're very
so
welcome.
much.
Hey, good to see you all, and don't stop, please. Thank you.
You too.
Okay.
Thanks, man.
Okay.